This video will dive a little deeper into social collaboration in XR, so let's go ahead and get started. As I've mentioned in my best practices article, Enabling Collaboration in XR, when you're in VR, it's pretty much like in real life. People are still relying on body language and other visual cues as a part of that natural conversation and interaction with each other. Even though we may not realize it, we expect those same behaviors. And when something's off, we notice, but we may not always know why it feels strange or wrong. When the virtual environment is not designed in a way that enables or enhances that understanding, it can get confusing and people can feel uncomfortable. This means that when you have multiple people working together in a common project in a virtual space, it's best to ensure that intent is clear. One of the ways of doing this is to make sure that content is public for everyone to see. But at the same time, there's going to be content that you want to keep to yourself, such as your private settings for your own personal account or other confidential information. It's important to make sure that the intent is known so that a person can differentiate whether or not you're working on private content or on your shared project. The reason this known intent matters so much in a virtual environment is that when you have someone working on content that is not visible to everyone, it can be disconcerting and can even result in some subconscious level of distrust. That's because as social creatures, we've learned to read each other's intent by our body language, what we're doing with our hands, where we're looking. In real life, we can see that when somebody's looking at their phone instead of paying attention to the conversation, it's pretty clear what's happening. If we don't have that phone and all we see are random gestures made in the air, then we'd wonder what they're doing since we don't have that context. And it's not always so much distrust either. Sometimes it's just confusion because you may think, what are you doing with your hands? Are you trying to tell me something? What? But they're really just working on their private menu. Rec Room solves both the problems of keeping your hands within view and letting people know intent by having transparent panels. You can still see the environment through your panel, so it's not occluding your view of the world or of any collaborative content. You can also see when other people in the same space have their UI panels open. However, for privacy, you can't see what's on their panel. It's just represented by a yellow transparent rectangle. And since the panels are transparent, everyone's hands also stay within view. Glue's UI is a little more elegant and more professional than Rec Room's UI. However, you can't see each other's panels when you're in a room with someone. This can lead to confusion or subconscious discomfort in some cases. Engage solves the problems of privacy and intent by having you hold a tablet, which is a lot more natural in what we would expect in real life. It maintains privacy by keeping the screen blank for anyone who happens to look over their shoulder. And VR Chat uses a combination of panels, including a billboard type that is below eye level and is transparent so you can see the environment through it. However, you can't see each other's panels. Another potential problem with billboard panels is that they could get in the way of whatever it is you're trying to work on if you're creating something in the environment, such as a model or a prototype. For these types of collaborative environments, you could go with a more traditional palette like you see in Tilt Brush, Maquette, Sketchbox, or Shapes XR. The only potential issue of the tool palette would be that if you can't dismiss it, it could get in the way of what you're trying to do. So you'll want to study the use case of your solution to see if it would be better to make it dismissible. Adobe Medium maps their UI buttons to the controller, so you can summon and dismiss the menus directly from there. Rec Room doesn't use a palette, but it gives you the option to either hold the menu or pop it out into its own panel that will follow you around in space as you move. It also has skeuomorphic handlebars on the side to let you know you can move it and adjust it in space. It's also important in social VR environments to indicate who is speaking. Rec Room does this by creating a visual indication of a sound wave coming out of the speaker's avatar's mouth. VR Chat indicates who's speaking with a glowing outline and a wave pattern emanating from the nameplate. One last thing worth mentioning is avatars. You want to have avatars with hands, and this is regardless of whether it's a human-like avatar or, as in this case, an animal avatar that doesn't have a body. And also regardless of whether there is a human or an AI or artificial intelligence behind the avatar, such as with non-player characters. You also want to avoid using static images as representations of other people or characters in the XR experience. In the version of Catan VR where you play with the AI, they have 2D images, but they're animated to depict emotion and indicate where they're looking. This is also how they provide a clear distinction between what's a player and what's a non-player character in the space. However, the problem remains that you can't see their hands, so you don't know what's going on when it's their turn, especially if there's a delay. You're not sure if there's some kind of technical issue, or if you're supposed to be doing something instead, or if they're in the process of doing something during their turn of play. The avatars for the humans still have hands, so this is only an issue with the AI's non-player avatar. This, however, does indicate that there needs to be similar behavior for non-player characters while still clearly differentiating them from human players. I highly encourage you to check out these experiences for yourself if you get the chance. I've included the links below in the show notes. So for a quick recap, preserve a clear view of everyone's hands. Place the UI elements below eye level and around them within easy reach. Keep the collaborative content public within that space so that anyone sharing that space can see the same thing. Represent personal settings panels as translucent or blurred panels to other people who are sharing this space when privacy is needed. Provide a visual cue to indicate who is speaking at a given time. Ensure all attendees have a visual representation through video or a real-time animated avatar. Having placeholder static images in a virtual environment can cause discomfort and can hinder communication. Go ahead and take full advantage of the immersive virtual platform. Set nameplate labels and other important information so that they always face each individual participant. You can learn more about the neuroscience behind these best practices by reading my article, Enabling Collaboration in XR, which I've included in the show notes.